Hi there, folks. This is Jim the Keys bartender coming to you from Key Largo and beautiful Florida Keys. I'm here with Lee Sharp. Say hi, Lee.
What's up, everybody?
And a new friend, Jim Brock. Say hi, Jim.
Hey, how are you?
All right. Good. You guys are coming in really clear. That's great. Lee Sharp, the listeners are familiar with him. He's a musician here in the Keys. And Lee brought to my attention that he thought that because of my meanderings that tilted towards outside issues like politics and things like that, that his friend Jim Brock, who you were musicians together, is that correct? Lee, why don't you tell me how you met Jim, and then Jim can introduce himself and what he does. Okay? So where'd you meet?
All right.
Yeah.
Well, originally I'm from Memphis, Tennessee, and I met this young, phenomenal talent down there. I don't remember exactly how we met. I think he was playing with a mutual friend of ours, Roxanne, and that's how we just kind of linked up and been friends ever since. And his name is Jim Brock, and he's right there.
Okay, and
Thanks,
Jim Brock. Yep, and besides being a musician, you're also in the newspaper business. So, what do you call yourself?
I was.
Oh, okay. Well, what?
I am a.
Go ahead. Tell us. About
I was a journalist for 16 years, and I did that kind of in tandem with my music career, and then around, I guess, 2012, I really got serious about my career in journalism, and did that again for a while, and then with the way the world worked, and I was a syndicated columnist for 18 months with a company called Gatehouse Media, and eventually until about 2 years ago, I did that, and then I went back to school and recently earned my master's in psychology. So I work in the mental health field now. So,
wow, that's great. Oh, that's interesting. One of our regular guests on the show is a retired psychologist. He lives part of the year in Key Largo and part of the year in Spain, and his specialty, he worked in the corrections industry. Worked with
oh wow,
and he pioneered psychoacoustic feedback. You ever hear of it?
Huh? Interesting. No, that's a first.
What he was working?
But,
he took an idea to the music department, a fellow in the music department at Johns Hopkins University, and the person. He suggested that he should run brain waves through a synthesizer, and this way they can do a audio representation of brain waves, and then create a feedback. So to get a patient into a certain state, their brain waves would send that out. Oh, that I didn't want to get too long. Maybe someday we can have you guys talk together. But that is really interesting, Jim. You're a musician, a journalist. You were editor for a long time. One of the pieces I read on yours was your editorial on bullying, and that was very heartfelt. And I think you took it. This was prior to the election of. Was it prior to the election of the current guy?
Yes, it was in 2014. So it was
Yeah,
and he's actually mentioned in that column, actually.
Oh, he was? Okay. Yeah, so it was kind of presaged. It was the moment that we're in right now, and how he's admired. And it's funny for the kind of he's very I think maybe for this particular item, I didn't want to focus on it. As a bully, we see it. He's very sensitive to criticism.
Very much.
Yeah, and you see how weak the bully is. You know what I mean? So, trying to pretend to be tough.
Yeah.
It really, the emperor really doesn't have clothes. You can see that. What do you think, Lee?
Well,
Go, Jim.
I'm sorry.
Okay, you go, Jim.
Oh, well, I look at it as almost a cult mentality when you look at Donald Trump, because first of all, nothing sticks to him, and I mean, he can say pretty much anything, and you get the standard, well, that's not what he meant, or he was sarcastic, or just any number of things that come out of his mouth that are just completely ridiculous. And you see a following that I've never seen before in my 40 years, and even when I followed politics pretty closely, I never saw people just, follow this guy without question. And, you have the apologists and the conservative media who are basically there to, they're basically his PR, and, that's what you have. And we're so polarized now more than ever. I think more than we were in the Civil War, to be honest with you. And so that's where we are. And then I just never thought the day would come where, it's not the Russians who we have to worry about. It's other Americans, because right and left just hate each other. And it's really sickening.
I thought it was divisive during the Bush years. And I really am surprised that I look back on those days with nostalgia. And I go, wow, there was a there was a leader. There was a leader. You know what I mean?
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Proxy.
Yeah.
Well,
even Dick Cheney. Even Dick Cheney looks to be a lot more. I guess. I don't know. The reason why I brought that up was because of that article. But you guys both met as musicians in Memphis. Is that correct? Because you both have the
right.
same area code, and you kept that. It's emblematic, keeping the same area code, the same thing Lee did. When you're being able to port your number, you really don't want to let go of your roots, do you?
Well, not especially. I'm not a one for life forever. That's just how it is, unless I move out of the country, and there's nothing I can do about that. But it's and that's where I got all of my roots. That's where my mother still lives, and all this other kind of stuff. And also, I've had that number since when they were actually charging to call out of another area code. So, but anyway, still like the number. It's on my business cards, and it's can't just throw away 2,000 business cards just like that.
Well,
so
the area code is kind of like the tattoo, the modern tattoo that you could bring with you the rest of your life. It's identified with you.
That is correct. But most people say Memphis is fuck right now. Means the same thing.
Memphis is what?
Memphis as fuck.
Memphis as fuck.
Yeah. I'm so Memphis.
It's like kind of like I'm Memphis as fuck.
Right. There's a couple of sites online, and it's like,
it's like
I'm so Memphis that I.
Really?
And it's like, yeah, that's Memphis right there. Yeah. And you can insert your own little whatever that means to be a Memphian. There's some rough places. There's some weird places, and but you still call Memphis your home. Still Memphis as fuck. Now what?
You know what? For a middling big city, it's a big city, but it's not the biggest. That's one of the best lines I've heard, and I've never heard that before. Mm-hmm. Memphis is fuck, and that's so. Jim, you kept your the same thing. I'm kind of I feel ashamed. I got rid of my 215 number from Philadelphia. It's from inside the city, and I think I gave up my roots. I'm stuck with a 305 now. Who would have thought it? You had an idea, usually was the impression that Florida was Florida was, of the states, was the short bus state. right?
The
You get
what
that
ship?
impression? The short bus. You know, where a lot of people
The short bus state.
they have to wear helmets and be
Oh.
careful. Yeah,
Really?
that kind of state. And I mean, that's the impression. You know what? I realize that when we do have a large segment of the population that is reactionary. I like to call it reactionary. Reactionary is people that want to go back to days gone by, thinking they were the good old times, and they may have been good old times for some people, but not for most people. Only for a select few people. The times they're talking about. Jim, you get what I'm talking about. The Make America Great
I do.
Crowd. Great again.
Right.
When I've tried to nail it, my
Yeah,
thing is, you ever get?
We're gonna make coal great again.
No, but did you ever?
We're gonna make coal. Remember coal? That was awesome.
Yeah, no, but did you ever ask them what at what point in history would you point to that was our greatest? To go back in time, what point do you want to pick? Was it slavery? Was it segregation? Was it Jim Crow law? Was it women not having a right to vote? Almost anything, and they just point to some nebulous point in the past where things were better than they are now. Men couldn't marry men and all sorts of things. But Lee suggested you'd be able to keep up with it.
Definitely. Yeah, I'm sorry.
Yeah. No, that's it.
Go ahead, Jim.
No, what I was going to say is talking to a lot of these people when I was a journalist, a lot of people, they pine for the days of the 1950s, where the middle class actually became a thing. Because prior to the 1950s, there was no such thing as a middle class. And, you had rich and you had poor. That was the American population. And I would say it's a little bit of that, because people, that was a time when industry, when, there were mom and pops everywhere. There weren't a lot of corporations, and that was before globalism. And that was a time when, anybody could, and of course you were typically white and Christian, and that was the nuclear family. And I think that's a lot of what they want. The Eisenhower years, the time after World War II when people were coming back and they were making a life for themselves, but there were still, if you lived on the fringes, you belonged to a second-class citizen. You didn't get to enjoy that American, dream.
Well,
and it seems like a lot of people. Go ahead.
No, the historian in me.
Go ahead.
The historian in me realizes that was my idea. It's not my idea. It's the idea of a lot of people post World War II America. We were the only industrialized nation left that wasn't devastated during World War II. And we had been the arsenal for democracy.
Sure.
So we were turning out all these defense items or offense items, whatever you want to call them, but they were needed. They were needed at the time. And then we made the conversion to consumer items. And post that, here we got the rest of the world. We're through the Marshall Plan. We're remaking Western Europe in our likeness. We rewrote the Constitution of Japan, and all these things. And yes, we were on top. Soviet Union was doing trying to do a quick rebuild, challenging us in space. That space race right there, and maybe they had large troop presence in Eastern Europe, but it was an artificial position we were in because of the two oceans that separated us from that. And if we had been sitting a couple 100 miles off the shore of Europe, much like England was, we would have felt the effects, in our homeland, but we didn't. And so I think Eisenhower explained it at the end of right at the end of the 50s when he was leaving, or in the early 60s when he was leaving office. He gave an address. His parting address was, beware of the military-industrial complex, because he said every missile made, every tank, every warship takes away from education and things like that. So he saw that the path we were on was not sustainable, and the people he picked, he picked Earl Warren for the Supreme Court, and the Warren Court was one of the more progressive courts considering what happened before it, when it introduced Brown versus the Board of Education and all that desegregation and things like that. So that was began in the 1950s, because we weren't at war, we were economically viable, and the federal government was able to. They established a national highway system and interstate highway system and all that stuff under the idea that the Defense Department could ship to defend the United States in order to get it, but it's a highway system, and we transitioned from a country where most of the people lived in cities to the suburbs, and so these things where people are pining away for these things, we actually made ourselves weaker in the long run. Because look at where we're at right now. The strength isn't in the subways. Yeah. The strength isn't in the suburbs. It's in the cities now. That's where the energy is now.
Right.
And they want to try to bring it back and say,
well, I tell you, I will Right. I will interject that point. You brought up a good point about, the space race between, the Soviets and the capitalists. And then a lot of the technological advances that we made from 1948 on both sides, whether it was in the USSR or whether it was in the States, are attributed to German nationals who a lot of them were involved in the Nazi Party, scientists, doctors, even some soldiers who were brought over here and who were brought over there. And some of the NASA technology is directly related to a man who was in the Nazi Party. So it's, you look back at history, and there are a lot of things going on that, that people don't talk about, that history gets rewritten, So we're really only allowed to hear what they want us to hear. And I'm a student of history as well. So you see that and you see what's going on now, and you're like, well, what's really going on, And you have to question it always. And going back to what we were saying about Trump was, he doesn't want questions. He wants to go out there, speak to the press, and nobody hold him accountable.
Yeah.
Almost like state TV, and that's something we can't have.
He is not accountable.
So, when you have a president... No.
That's what I'm saying.
When you have a president who says...
exactly you said.
Yeah. Right.
We do what he says.
Right.
He's doing what he can do.
Yeah. Well, we get in these discussions...
When he got up there and said that
What?
Right. When he said to people, that the media, that the press is the enemy of the people, that's when I pretty much said, you know what, I need to find another line of work. Because it's always going to be, well, that guy's liberal, he's too liberal, or that guy's too conservative. It's like, that's not, it's like I keep my, when I'm covering a story, my opinion doesn't matter. And I try to keep it out of it, so... If people can't accept that, then, I'll let the younger generation take over.
There was a recent poll taken about whether education was a higher education harmed society or helped in general, and more conservative people believe that a higher education was detrimental to the health of our society, which was, obviously there are conservative people out there that understand that there is a need for higher degrees for people out there and stuff like that. But it just seems like there's an old axiom, and it said, not all Republicans are racist, but all racists are Republicans. And,
yeah, I've heard that before.
Okay, and it used to be, and I'll grant people when they say, well, the Democratic Party in the South used to be the most. Yes, it was. Yes, it was. I'll say it again. Yes, it was. The Democratic Party, the Dixiecrats were racist, but that's changed. That isn't now. It used to be.
Yes.
The Republican used to be the party ideas. Abraham Lincoln, even though he was slightly a racist too, but he was more progressive than a lot of the, Republicans that were pro-slavery Republicans, pro-slavery Democrats. So, I mean, he realized the evils inherent in his system, but he did not believe in equality. But it's a long. So, I mean, I don't mean to. I know here we are talking slavery. One of the guys on the show who happens to be African American isn't saying anything right now.
Oh, well, it's because I'm not supposed to. I'm a slave. I'm only spoken when spoken. I only speak when spoken to. So.
Oh yeah. No, but you see what I'm saying. No, but anybody brings back...
I'll go cook up some collard greens real quick, though, for you.
No, but if you bring back an argument like 30, 40, 60 years ago, 60, something happened 60 years ago, where people have a hard time, all action takes place, all things that occur happen now. Everything that happened in the past occurred. There's nothing you can do to change that. You can mitigate it. And anything in the future, well, that's, that depends on what you could do about it. And, that's environment, business, education, all that stuff. That is future oriented. But when you're talking to someone who's a reactionary, they always point to the past. Okay?
Okay.
And we did do that. There is reasons to point to the past. If you want to point to past injustices that are continuing through today, but that point when we're trying to make the argument here, let's say in Florida, whether I just had an interview with a gentleman, a young man who's running for state senate. I just interviewed him, and he has to battle when we're in Florida, let's say Monroe County, and you, where are you living now, right, Jim? You're in...
Who, me?
I'm in Clark County, Mississippi, which is around Meridian.
Okay. There's national issues, right?
Yes.
And there's local issues. So what we're concerned of, I bet a lot of things we're concerned of here in Monroe County, you're concerned with in Mississippi, Clark County, Mississippi. And here it's education, affordable housing, the local economy, which, that's what's affecting us. Now, actually, the national economy when it comes to your investments, maybe. But those things are all local. So when these guys running for office, he has to deal with issues where people say, oh, you're a Democrat. And they start talking about national issues. Now sometimes the state Senate does talk about, and this senator said, does talk about Second Amendment rights, whether, open carry laws and things like that. Okay. But he says, and this guy that's running for office says, most of the time, the bills that are passed in state legislature are business and voting rights bills and things like that, access. And it has to do with health and education. And the hot button issues we talk about on the national stage aren't the things you're dealing with locally. So they kind of just distract us and say, hey, listen, locally we got to take care of these things. The school needs money. We got to hire some teachers. The roads need to be fixed. We need to have a medical center here. There's all sorts of things. But when people are talking about, well, Jesus Christ, the guy, I don't want to watch a football game if the guy's kneeling. I mean, that's his idea. He's allowed to protest. What does that have to do with a local election? And this is the things you deal with when we have a discussion here locally. I'm sure, that happens with you, Jim.
Yeah, people don't pay attention to, civil forfeiture is a big thing in Mississippi. Nobody pays attention to it, but it basically, law enforcement can steal you blind. They can take everything you have and not be held accountable. And
educate
that
the listener on that civil forfeiture. I mean, I know with civil forfeiture, if you're committing a crime, they seize your property. But go into depth.
Well, see, that's the thing. You don't have to be committing a crime. Like, say, for example, it's just something that they suspect of a crime. Like, for example, they catch you driving down the highway. They pull you over and you happen to have more than $10,000 in cash on you. Mm-hmm. They don't stop and ask why you have it. They just take it on the assumption that you're doing something illegal. And it gets tied up in court and it stays there and you don't have the money to fight to get it back. So they basically just seize it and you never see it back because they figure that they can wear you down long enough that you'll just let it go.
Whoa.
And that happens all over America.
Civil, I've never heard this.
What happened?
I've never heard this.
Yeah, if you have over a certain amount, like you can't get on a plane with $10,000. So and that's just $10,000. That's nothing, really. That's a year's. At some people, that's half a year's salary.
Wait,
and that's on the poor side.
Where's your due process? What do they seize it under? The suspicion.
Yeah, suspicion of a crime. Yeah, I mean it can, and they don't have enough laws against it. Yeah, and and in order to claim it, you have to go through the process, and sometimes you can't afford to go through the process.
Wow.
It's just like it's just like you're trying to sue a major corporation because you got cancer from one of its products, and what they do is they just wear you down. They hire these lawyers that are really expensive, and you can't continue to go to court because you don't have the money, and basically they just wear you down.
Oh well! Oh my God!
That's why you have to get a tort.
The cap on liability, on punitive damages, is one of the most detrimental things they've done because punitive damage were the cornerstone of tort law. I mean, your punitive damages were meant to change adverse behavior by corporations. So it sounds like you probably know about this, Jim. There was a documentary called Hot Coffee. It was about the famous lawsuit of the woman that went to McDonald's, an older woman, and she ordered. She was there with her son or relative. She goes to the drive-through. They pull off the side after they get the coffee, and while she's putting the lid on, it was insecure. It wasn't secured properly. She spills it on herself and had severe burns on her legs. Now, it turned out that she wasn't suing. The case was held up as a wrong.
The cups.
Well, no, it wasn't a cup. She was suing McDonald's for wrongdoing because they had it in their procedural in their handbook. The temperature that the coffee it was right below boiling, the temperature, and it was it was in their handbook, and they said, listen, you can't do that. You can't give people coffee because when you pour it on your skin, it causes deep tissue damage, and it did cause deep tissue damage. If you saw the pictures of what happened to this woman's leg, and the documentary
There's an episode of Seinfeld about this.
Yeah, no, this was that they were making fun of that.
I know.
They were making.
But
the idea was that the corporations are saying, listen, this is a frivolous lawsuit. They point to these key lawsuits, but then again, you have the ones where the one in California, the Aaron Brockovich one, you got the Love Canal, and where you have these corporations have and the movie that's a civil action or something like that, John Travolta, but it's all companies doing wrong thing when when it comes to environmental. The Superfund laws in the United States came about that they dedicated billions of dollars to do cleanup because they knew companies, when they're not monitored, would do these horrible wrongs. And companies point out to frivolous lawsuits of people like the hot coffee. And if you ever get a chance, look into that one. It's incredible because the lady wasn't looking for a payday or anything like that. They were looking to change the behavior of what they were doing. So because people were getting injured by this, and it sounds frivolous when you describe it.
And you see that's the problem too. Because a lot of times, like say for example, you have I think it was DuPont they had an issue where they basically in this county they paid for everything. They supplied jobs. Basically, the entire county was dependent on this corporation being there, for their, economic prosperity. Well, the water supply is poisoned for years and years, and it's basically causing all kinds of cancer and all these different, diseases. And DuPont's untouchable. Well, they finally hire somebody who will go after DuPont and keep going, and then finally DuPont settles. But guess what? In order to get this money, you have to sign an NDA. So, no, they're not held accountable. They pay out the money and they keep walking because nobody knows what happened because they can't violate the conditions of their non-disclosure agreement. It's all about PR.
Yeah.
And that's the way American business works. So unfettered.
Well, I think it's all businesses. It's like, they like when someone's about to get like cigarette company or big oil, they do the same thing. Once a big scare comes, okay, what they do is they say I'm sorry a couple of times and they change the name, and so like they change it to another shell name of a company. It's still called Marlboro, but they change the name to something else to defer from that. And I don't really know how they get away with it. Like BP wasn't always BP; it was something else from the first oil spill. It was so they change the name and hope you forget about it. Okay, it still might be Exxon's oil. They still might use the same, maybe not Exxon, but you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Another company. They'll just go to another company's name, so that they encompass.
Well,
and I do it like that, and then boom. Okay. Well, this is a good oil company. They're cool.
It's funny that you mentioned
never heard
tobacco.
Of them.
You mentioned tobacco, and today, even hundreds of billions of dollars they paid out in damages. What are they still doing? They're still selling tobacco in Asia, Africa, South America,
and raising the price.
They pass the cost on to the smoker.
Yeah. What? Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Well, you got to tax.
It's called a sin tax, is what it is.
Yeah.
Sin, not syntax, but SIN tax. So a pack of squares in New York is $13, $12. So they do that in order to get you to stop buying it, but you're already addicted. So what are you going to do?
Yeah.
So that's what they were going to do with pot, but it's I thought that Florida would have been one of the first places to legalize marijuana. And of course, the timber corporations, they don't want that because you can use it for all sorts of other kind of stuff. But lo and behold, I didn't think about it. There's a large elderly population here, and the pharmaceutical companies want them to be dependent, obviously, on the 14 pills on Monday, the 13 pills on Tuesday, So I thought that at first, I thought this was going to be the first place, but no, it's for the more progressive places with the younger people that have lobbyists in their corner that really want to smoke pot a lot.
Well, I think when it comes to pot, I think when it comes to pot that it's different from alcohol and drugs. I mean, you could manufacture your own drugs, certain drugs, crystal meth. We know people do that. We know people can make their own wine and beer and things like that. But it's a
you can make it in jail.
Yeah, it's a harder process to make good alcohol and good prescription drugs. the one thing they're trying to wrap their head around is how are they going to put it, be able to get people to not grow their own marijuana. Because how hard would it be? I knew people that could, in their own closets, it had a nice walk-in closet, could make all the pot they would smoke.
Oh, yeah, I know that. Yeah, I think everybody knows some people like that.
Yeah. It's one of the few things, and that's the reason why they're thinking, well, we got dispensaries, you can get this, we could do edibles, but what are people going to do? And they realize, they go and say, well, there's nothing we could do about it, so they're fighting a battle against it. And there's people that come out of there. Even one of the Kennedys came out and said, believe it's a gateway drug. Well, how the hell is that a gateway drug, and alcohol isn't a gateway drug? Take it from me, Jim and Lee. I'm a recovering alcoholic. My big thing was alcohol. It wasn't. I can walk away from pot, no problem. But alcohol. I had to go to meetings to avoid alcohol.
I'm pouring a drink right now.
Yeah. Well,
Well, that's not wrong with it. It's legal.
I'm in a similar situation.
What?
Yeah.
It's legal. Pot.
I'm a recovered. Yeah.
You're a recovered what?
I'm a recovering drug addict, so I understand.
Okay.
And I definitely understand. And it's and like here's an example. I was covering a local. It was a city council meeting actually, and the city was joining the lawsuit against the pharmaceutical companies for the opioid crisis.
Okay.
And everybody on the council was going to vote yes, but the one staunch conservative sat there and said, "I want to make this known that I'm voting no to this because I believe people are responsible for their own actions. I don't believe the pharmaceutical companies are responsible for getting these people addicted." And I'm sitting there to myself thinking that it's this line of thinking that is just so, it's all over the country. And these are the people who keep things like this going on, and people aren't responsible. You take any number of situations, say someone breaks their back, okay, and they're bedridden for 3 months. And the only thing they can do is take those pills to relieve their pain. And 3 months later, guess what? You're hooked.
And that's it.
Because, one pill every 4 hours isn't going to be enough when you're in constant pain because you're going to build a tolerance. And then at the end of that 3 months, you're hooked. So, yeah, right. I don't think it's their fault. I think that's something they fell into. And anybody can disagree, but.
Well, the pill mills must have been really big from that down here. There was a big issue with the pill mills in the Keys, but I'm sure it was in your neck of the woods also, where where all the places, North Dakota, Mississippi, Pennsylvania, you pick any state, West Virginia, huge problems. There was one town where they sold.
Mm-hmm.
It was, they only had 600 people, but they had 3 million doses of what was OxyContin sold in 1 month.
There you go.
3 million.
Yeah,
that's OxyContin is a real booger. But my friends, he used to be my roommate. He used to play down here in the Keys. We played some together. His name's Pat. His father had a bypass. I can't remember if it was a double or a triple bypass, but he had one, and it still sucks all the way. They still have to open up your chest and all that kind of stuff. So, they gave him the proper heart medicines and things of that nature and things for pain because they literally had to spread open his fucking chest. So his son is a pot smoker. So eventually those things the pills didn't work correctly. The only thing that made him feel great or to make him subside with the pain were gummies. And I'm not a pot smoker or anything like that. I understand the value of THC, CBD. He said that was the only thing. You could give him a case of pills, it wouldn't have worked. It actually was killed him. So and it's not legal in Georgia. So he just had to sneak them in, and that was the only thing. And they should really rethink this stuff. AIDS patients for hunger, and just straight CBD oil. I have a medical marijuana card, and I don't even smoke, but it's for CBD.
Well, you need a card
for nausea, for
you need the card for CBD oil.
You need a card for medical marijuana, yes.
No, but
and you can get them in.
No, but you don't need a card for CBD oil, right?
When I first got it, you did.
Oh, okay. Because I use it. I use it now. There's no THC.
It was last year.
I mean, there's THC, but it's it's a trace amount.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, you're not even supposed to have a trace. For instance, when I got mine, I was like, okay, because you have to go see a doctor, and he's like, do you smoke pot? And I was like, no, I don't. When was the last time you smoked pot? I was like, 2003. And he reeling off all these medical great things that happens with CBD only. So I was like, okay, well, go ahead and give me a script for marijuana too, just in case. It was mostly for my friends that couldn't get it. So, but I never did that part. But you know what I mean? So anyway, even if my friend that is an airline, she's an air traffic controller, and she can't smoke anything. She can't do any drugs at all because they're literally federal.
Uh-huh.
So she can't do CBDs, even though it's illegal. 100% CBD, she cannot. They'll test it, and she's fucked. Her boyfriend smokes a lot of pot. I wonder if just hooking up with him is making, might be an uneasy situation for her. But anyway, CBDs for air traffic controllers, which are completely harmless. Air traffic controllers can do it, cannot do it. I'm sorry, cannot do it. Mm-hmm. It's a tough job. I was actually going to try and get employed by the Aviation Association, but I'm too old now. So
the FAA.
FAA, yeah. I'm too old now. I've aged out, just because, and those guys are apparently essential employees, but you can't touch it, period. Which is confusing to me because it's a high stress job.
Yeah, but you can. Imagine you could get Valium or Lexapro.
Nope, can't do that either.
You can't. Even if
you can't do anything as a federal employee, and you get tested often because being an air traffic controller is a pretty big deal.
Yeah,
I'm not talking about the guy. I'm not talking about the person that's like waving you in with the lights. I'm talking about the dude in the tower.
Uh-huh.
And their only job is to stop planes from crashing into each other. So, and getting everything correct.
Yeah, that's true, because psychotropic drugs.
Say again?
Psychotropic
drugs.
I'm
sorry. Psychotropic drugs. Yeah, but what I'm saying is he was talking about Lexapro or anything like that. They can't because they have to pass the psych test.
Uh-huh.
And they can't take anything. You're right about that.
And sometimes you're there. I mean, like I've heard her schedule. It's 12 on, doing straight air traffic control. You go home. She lives down here in Key Largo, and she has to go back up to Miami. In another 5 hours, does another 9 hours on, comes back, and then goes back. So it's like they have a weird schedule. So it's like 12 on, and then like 8 on, and like 9 on the next day. And then you get like 3 days of nothing. You don't do anything. So just for me hanging out with all these air traffic controllers, they drink their ass off. As soon as they're home, that's all they do is drink. Seriously. And,
kind of like pilots. Pilots,
well, but these
pilots and boat captains. Pilots and boat captains.
Well, boat captains just want to.
They can't do anything either. They get tested and they drink their faces off. Well.
Oh, you mean like big boat captains?
Well,
like
I can't.
No, I'm talking about fishing boat captains. Yes. What were you saying, Jim?
I'm considered a medical practitioner, so I can't. I have to test for drugs pretty frequently, and I can't, do any type of drugs or alcohol.
Well, you really wouldn't want to do them anyway.
I mean, the alcohol,
right?
the alcohol is legal. Yeah, well, the alcohol I can because it's legal, but yeah, any type of mood altering substance, no. And they test.
But
they'll pop you with a test at any time.
Because of your history, even if you weren't a medical professional, you probably wouldn't take any of those anyway.
Right.
Okay. Yeah.
Can you prescribe them?
No. I don't.
Okay.
No.
Can I? No. I'm a master licensed therapist. I'm not a.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah. No.
Because after this phone call,
Yeah, sorry.
I got some guys to talk to.
What were you in the
Yeah,
mood
exactly. No.
What do you?
What's up, Jim? I love you so much, Jim.
Jim, one of our sponsors is a company that provides CBG oil. I don't know how you feel about that.
Yeah.
But I don't. It's not really the guy who's the creator of it is. He's hasn't drank in God, how many years has it been? 10 years. So he's sober, and he was looking for something because he had severe anxiety and back pain. But he's a big believer in that, and I don't know if you follow any of that stuff about cannabinoids, whether it's
I do, and I'll tell you this. As someone who has a drug history, there are things like kratom and certain types of things that I don't necessarily think is the best idea in the world because it might lead you right back down that road. You know what I'm saying?
What
because
is that?
If you're leaning too much on any type of
what is that you mentioned?
Yeah, kratom is it's something they sell legally in stores, and it's basically just it's some type of chemical that you mix with your drink or whatever, and it promotes relaxation. And I don't know what the chemical makeup is. I haven't studied enough about it, but I know a lot of people do it. And a lot of people who are in the recovery community, they will do it, and their sponsors will tell them no. But they'll be all, there's no,
Kratom.
And some of them will go back out because,
because maybe...
Yeah, kratom.
So they
Yeah,
take it.
and
They
then,
take it. It doesn't have. It has an effect on them, and then it doesn't have quite the effect they want, and then they need something else.
Sure. Well, and then you also have on the flip side, you have people doing Suboxone, which isn't anything new, but a lot of people will get off, drugs and. I'm sorry.
I
don't know what that is.
It's stupid. Don't worry about it.
Suboxone, it's a controlled
to look at.
Yeah, go ahead.
No, that was it. I just seen people on it, and it's weird. No, that's all.
What is
people...
it? What is it again? It's a controlled.
It's a controlled substance, and it's basically, but you have to have a prescription for it. And a lot of people who are getting off, substances, heroin, and even alcohol, will take Suboxone, and they go into a Suboxone program, which a lot of doctors will stretch out for a period of time. And it's like you don't need to be on Suboxone for 18 months to come off of heroin. You know what I'm saying? But a lot of people will do it, and then a lot of people who never even had a physical addiction to a drug but are in some type of recovery program will take Suboxone because they're like honestly, I've heard this said before. I really want to drink again, and I'm afraid I'm going to drink if something doesn't change. We'll go to the doctor and get a script for Suboxone. They don't even need it, but they get it. And because it's legal, because they seem to have, somebody saying, hey, it's okay that they're doing it, and it's basically just people abuse Suboxone.
Wow, I've never even heard. I guess I don't get involved in it. You ever hear of the new, there's a new drink, a non-alcoholic drink, but it's called Euphorix. Euphorix, EUPHORICS, Euphorix.
No.
No, I've never heard of it, but it sounds like I need to stay away from it.
Yeah, it does. Well, I mean, I saw it on there. When I was sober for 7 years and I went out for 5, and when I came back, I started seeing advertising for Euphorics, and I go, wow, if people don't realize that the internet, they do watch your searches, and they tailor the ads for you. That's one of them. So, but Euphoric show all over the place. I never even looked into it because I know that it's not alcohol, but they sell it to people. I guess they're selling it to people that want to drink and get some kind of something.
I understand.
Yeah,
they used to have one of those before. Me and my buddy, when I was a heavier drinker than I am, they sold them straight up at the gas station, and they didn't smell. It had a higher amount of alcohol in it though, but you didn't taste it. It didn't taste like beer, and it all filled you up and stuff. It was my favorite drink. Me and my buddy Hunter, who Jim knows. It's called Sparks. And they came in a diet flavor.
I remember those Sparks.
And they came in a blue. The blue label was caffeine, was calorie free, and the other one was a orange label, and there was a black label, and each one had a little bit more caffeine in it. So what you're doing is it's super concentrated caffeine, and gets you fucked up. So you think that, man, okay, it's 2:00 in the morning. I got 5 hours to get to sleep, but to go back to get to work, but you can't go to sleep because these things go down like candy. I'm telling you, it's a refreshing beverage. And so they took it off the market because it was too refreshing, and it got you really drunk, and you're still hyped up, and you couldn't smell it. So they took it off the market, and I was mad, but I'm just.
Didn't they have that other one? What's the other one they sold in the 16-ounce can? The
if you're talking about Monster, that doesn't have any alcohol in it.
No, this was one. It was a malt liquor. It was a malt liquor and an energy drink. I forgot the name of it.
It was probably called Sparks.
No, it was
That's
something
the one
else.
I drank. It was a malt liquor.
Different one. There's another one.
Sparks game.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I found out. What was it? What's it called? Kratom? Granum? What was that?
Kratom. Yeah.
Kratom.
Kratom. Kratom. Kratom.
Kratom. Holy crap!
That's delicious.
And I've heard people call it kratom.
No, it doesn't. It sounds
I don't know the correct pronunciation.
Like Kratom sounds like a Neolithic warlord. Kratom. He led a large group,
exactly.
group of hunters in northern France. Kratom. The post Neanderthal. Kratom.
Yeah,
and the other
exactly.
one was, what's that one that they give to people that are coming off? I mean, I heard of methadone. I heard methadone's worse than heroin to get off. But the other one was the one with the L. You mentioned.
Mm-hmm. Don't know.
The drug, you just were talking about it.
I mentioned one with a...
Was it
Suboxone?
L? Yeah, that's it. Suboxone. It's not L.
Suboxone, yeah.
Suboxone. Wow. I mean, I swear to God, I thought I heard everything. I guess I'm not really into... I thought I knew... I'm a bartender, and I hear everything. And then I hear about 2 drugs I never even heard of.
Yeah,
There's
a bunch
I have to
out
tell you,
there,
I'm
man.
sure anybody. Yeah.
There's another one.
It's all about the money.
All right, but I don't know what it's called. There's another one. It might be another synthetic, but it's not a prescribed anything. But it has a different name in different countries. But it's basically called the zombie drug. I'm sure you've seen that. If you haven't seen a video of somebody on the zombie drug before,
it's bath salts?
check it out.
The bath salts?
It's more than bath salt. It's something else that they used to do, that they do in At first, it was supposed to be for people to stay up and to keep studying to get through med school and stuff. And then, and then
Like
somebody took
Adderall?
overboard, of course. No, this is fucked up more. Like in Thailand, they used to chew these leaves, and it would keep you up for 30 hours, but it wasn't coke. It wasn't coca leaves. It was something else that is indigenous to Thailand. And they would just chew those all the time, and it would just keep you up. It didn't make you all weird and shit. You could probably just pick them off a tree. Okay, so this is another kind that started, I believe, in Brazil, and it literally makes you like run in the cars, and you look like a zombie, and not run in the cars. I'm talking about like as a solo human being, and that's a car. You think it's a good idea to just go ahead and run into that real quick and bash your head in the side of the car, and like you don't understand anything that's going on. So it has a bunch of different names. Most people call it the zombie drug.
Really?
And you do look like you're on Walking Dead.
Okay,
Wow.
that would be one of the new zombies, the faster zombies, because the old zombies.
They are the
Yeah.
faster zombies. Not Jason slow zombie that catches up to you anyway because you fall like a dumbass.
Yeah.
No, they're coming and they're they're coming crazy.
Oh, Frankenstein.
It just sounds
Or-
like it sounds
or
like
Frankenstein.
PCP.
It is not, because PCP is old school. PCP makes you think you're really strong. It
Oh,
makes you want to try and pick up a car and then bust up your back. This one just makes you want to just
right.
look like a zombie. You literally look like a zombie. And this one Brazilian girl, her nest, I guess, got caught, and she went into the back of somebody's pickup truck, and everybody had lights on her, and so she thought it'd be a good idea, or whatever she was thinking, probably nothing, was just to slam her head up against the side of the thing. She knew she was caught, so she just kept doing it and kind of laughing all at the same time.
Okay, well, that's disturbing.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's good times.
Hey,
So
you know what?
jokes are always evolving,
This is this is my
Yeah.
first. This was my first three-way, and it's two guys, so that's kind of
Giggity.
depressing. You know,
sorry.
I mean, we
Right.
figured,
Good for you.
figured we have at least have a girl involved, but I figure it'd be a good way. I didn't want to.
Yeah,
I didn't want to go in detail because it sounds like I figure we just get right into this because next time if we ever want to do this, we're already in there, and if we ever want to go into detail about your history, we could just go and tell a story on one show.
I don't.
sure.
Yeah. So I knew.
Sounds good to me.
I figured we
Yeah.
just dive right into it. So we're just like old friends. So, well, you are old friends with Lee. So I want to thank you for coming on. It's an hour. I did 2-hour shows. So we spanned the globe here.
Have we been on the
started-
phone for an hour?
Yep, an hour.
Wow.
So we started out. Let me see.
Yeah.
Let's draw the line. We started talking about bullying.
Plus,
Okay, bullying. Donald Trump. We drew the line to there. America, great. Let's see. We went from there to. I forgot what we're talking about after America, great. Maybe you guys can clue me in.
you
We'll
went
talk
into like old school history. stuff.
History about why.
Yes,
why
we
America
did.
was a Old school history. And then we started talking about
And then the space race with the Nazis.
the space. There were Nazis. The
Fascist.
Nazis helping us out in the space
Socialist.
race. And then what did we do after that? We started
We talked about
talking
slavery
slavery. Yep.
for a half second.
Well, I think I started talking about slavery before then, and then the Nazis, and then we started talking about drugs, and we found out
Yeah.
we're
Yeah.
both you and I are both in recovery, and we spent 20 minutes talking about drugs, but luckily we weren't romanticizing them. Except for Lee was.
Yes.
Lee
No,
was
that
romanticized.
doesn't.
Spark? Was it Spark?
Sparks, man. Get it straight.
Spark.
Sparks.
Kratom? Kratom?
A.
Sparks.
Oh,
Sparks.
delicious.
Sparks. Great. Yeah, Kratom.
Yeah.
What are you going to say about CBD? You started, Jim, you started talking about CBD. Was it thumbs up or thumbs down? Thumbs down?
CBDs are some,
Ugh, I've never taken it, so I don't know.
Well, what do you hear
Maybe
about
a
it?
thumbs up. I
Good
mean,
for you.
well,
CBD
yeah,
oil,
I've heard it's good for you, and also hear it's non-addictive, and it helps it helps relieve symptoms of anxiety without, putting any pressure on your liver. So if you can take CBD and not have to worry about taking some type of benzodiazepine, that's healthier for your liver. It's healthier for your blood pressure, and everybody wins. I don't see a problem with it.
With that being said, I'd like to tell our listeners about our sponsor, DeKind CBG, supplier of fine CBG products. They have edibles, they have smokables, and they have oils. So you can find them at www.dakind, DAKIND.com. I'll put it in the show notes. Jim Brock, if you said something negative, I would have just said, well, what do I know? And still done the same thing. But I wasn't gonna, if you said, hey, I heard a lot of bad things about it, I would have said, oh, shit, I guess I should. You should never, you always hear the rule of thumb about questions. You should never ask a question you don't know what the answer is going to be. So
that
was funny.
That's
you
true.
Just
you probably
just did a commercial for it. But I'm not saying you should look into.
I did, didn't I? Wow.
People should look into, do a little research to see it's right for you. But from everything I've heard, and Jim here is a professional, what he's heard, it seems to be a benign substance. And people I know that are in recovery are using it because there's no psychoactive ingredient, or if there is, it's a trace amount. It's sad if you need to get something like that, this may not be the thing for you. But if you are looking for a reduction in anxiety, inflammation too, I heard about that, people that have chronic inflammation, that it works. So Lee, you should be
nausea, hunger.
Yep. If you're addicted,
all those kind of things.
You're addicted to Sparks.
Well, that was in the past, man.
Instead of like at 3:00 in the morning going and get a can of Sparks. Well, I would take.
Get to go for the rest of the day.
I would just say I wouldn't drink that at 3:00 in the morning. Don't drink that at 3:00 in the morning.
Those are the good old days.
You should drink that at 2:00 in the afternoon.
I did.
Yeah, I would drink Jaeger bombs just over and over, and I'd have so many Jaeger bombs by the end of the night. It would be 8, 9 o'clock the next day before I could get to sleep. It's like, because when you're drinking, Jaeger and Red Bull just constantly, it's like, wow, your heart's working overdrive, and it definitely messes up your sleep schedule. So,
no good.
I was some beer and a bottle of bourbon guy, just neat, just drinking it straight from the bottle. So. Not straight from I poured into a glass. I wasn't an animal.
No, whatever. It doesn't make you classier, man.
It doesn't?
Use a glass.
Yeah.
No.
It is classier in a glass.
The
worst thing you do is with a paper bag. The worst one you can put is a paper bag. Or
that's the pimp way to do it.
If you ever watch, there's a show on called Always Sunny in Philadelphia. I
love that show.
Putting wine into a soda can. That's not classy either. So, but I'd like to.
Well, if you ever watch The Wire on HBO,
yeah,
right.
You ever watch The Wire on HBO? They found a way to legalize all that.
Yeah. Oh.
Yeah. You're not drinking unless it's in a paper bag, man. That's all I know.
Yeah, what are you hiding? If you're hiding something, if you're drinking something from a paper bag, it's like a big flashing light that you're drinking something. That's not...
Oh, yeah, I'm having myself a little cocktail.
Yeah,
it's the middle of the day, and I did my due diligence all day.
Yeah, you might as well be
drinking for 3 hours.
You might as well be drinking from a big wine goblet or a martini glass. One of those bejeweled goblets the Bishop has. The rapper Bishop.
Yeah, it's called a pimp cup.
Yep. Pimp cup. There's a Pimm's cup. There's a drink called a Pimm's cup, PYMS, and a pimp cup. Yeah, I like a pimp cup, but
pimp cup is great.
Yeah, a bejeweled chalice. A bejeweled chalice is not very hygienic, especially nowadays. You got a lot of nooks and crannies you got to clean. You got to be considerate of someone. If you're going to be sharing your chalice with someone.
Just grab a crazy straw, man. You're good.
What? Do what?
Just
Crazy?
get your each your own straws, and just use different straws. And you could be, you know, you both have your pimp cup. You both have the pimp cup. You know, you just use the same, you know, just different straws.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Oh man, you're from Memphis. I'm from Philly. I think I have more street cred than you.
There's no way
I
in
don't
hell
know.
that's true. There's no way in hell that's true,
You
sir.
don't know. You don't know. Me and the Fresh Prince.
No.
We had to get out of West Philly and move to Bel Air. So we got in a little
Well,
trouble.
of course you did. You and Fresh Prince and all the other millionaires. You know?
Yeah.
We ain't got no millionaires over here. All we have is Fred Smith.
Yeah.
It's the only billionaire we have over there. And I think he even got out of Memphis.
Yep. Okay.
So, you know, the FedEx guy.
Well, I want to thank Lee. I want to thank Lee Sharp for being on the show and introducing us to Jim Brock. And
So, boy, Blue.
yep, thank you. And you know, maybe either we could do. What I found is that the internet connection, no matter if I'm hardwired or using Wi-Fi or anything like that, it is horrible in the midday. So the later we can do a show, the better. And since you're on Central Time, while the pandemic's going on, maybe we could, you know, in the future, since I have your number, I'll do a group text and see if you'd like to do a show again. Would that be all right?
That'd be fine. I'd look forward to it.
Okay. And Lee, would that be okay with you?
I can. I'll just get my people to talk to your people.
Yeah.
Well,
you got to get your people to talk to Jim's people first, and then my people.
Right.
So,
yeah, we'll set something up with Phil and accounting.
Yeah.
And we'll get it done.
Okay. Hey, and do you have a picture? Well, you know what? I was going to say a picture of both you and guys. Do you want it? We'll put a picture of Jim Brock on there. So, Jim.
You know what? I don't know if we have a picture together or not.
Well, I could find a picture. I could find a picture of you, Jim, or you could send us one.
Okay, sounds good.
What do you want?
All right. Well, hey, I've enjoyed it, guys. Yeah, I'll send you a picture.
You send me. You like that? Because I'll find one and I'll post it on. No, I wouldn't post it. I wouldn't post it on there. If you don't want to, if you're not comfortable with a picture on there, I won't put a picture on there. I could do just a general photo. I could do one of since we're talking about that, we could put a picture of a caricature of the president on there. Whatever you like.
Sounds good to me.
You like that?
Well,
There you go.
mm-hmm.
Okay, we'll do that then.
Yeah,
Okay,
let's do
I'd
that.
like
Sounds good.
Okay.
All right.
I'd like to thank both you, and I'll talk to you later.
All right. Thanks, Jim. Thanks.
All right, sounds good.
Thank you, Jim.
Talk to you later.
Thank you, Lee.
All right. Thanks, Lee.
Bye.
Bye.
Okay, listeners, that's my first three-way, if you heard that correctly. Thank you for hanging in there. I know that was kind of like, I didn't know what to expect. So we'll be able to do this. It won't be just one-on-one. We'll see if we can add people as we go, see how many people we can have on the phone. I'd like to thank you for listening, and also please go to www.keysbartender.com if you're interested in any of the fine products that we have. Right now I have on our sponsors page, I have Bellissima Wines. Just go in there, look on our sponsor, and it's Prosecco and sparkling white wine, and they also have a low sugar alternative. And also, if you're interested in CBG oil, it's a product similar to CBD, but a little stronger. And find out a little more about it. See if it'll help. It's great with inflammation, all different types of problems, anxiety. If you have a problem sleeping, for me, you know, if you have a problem, if you have to, and even sometimes it even helps if you're one of those guys that have to get up in the middle of the night to pee. It helps relax you enough that you don't have to do it until the next day. But it's DaKind. It's DAKIND, and they're the makers of CBG products, and they're local in the Keys here, but they're also available on the internet. So you go to www.dakindpro.com dakind, DAKIND.com. Thank you very much and have a great day.